You're watching Race to Power. I'm Shreya Upadhyay. On the show today, we talk about China's reaction to President Donald Trump's Board of Peace and perhaps other countries that might reject the US president's invitation to join many already have. We also get you how an allegedly leaked phone call between US officials and women journalists in Bangladesh exposes a lot more than just the Washington-Dhaka ties. We get you all details about it. The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky took to the podium in Davos and openly criticized his European allies. He's criticized what he perceived was Europe's indecision to take action, even when it came to Iran. Now, his fiery speech has drawn a reaction from Iran. Tensions, remember, have been deepening between Ukraine and Russia's ally, Iran. In his speech, Zelensky referred to what he called bullies across the globe. He cited America's rapid response to target alleged drug boats in the Caribbean. He also spoke about United States capturing Nicolas Maduro and the American Operation Midnight Hammer against Iran's nuclear sites. He gave the Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's example in this list. He said that if Khamenei's regime survives, it gives an expression that bullies can exist without any consequences.
The Ayatollah has already killed thousands. And what will Iran become after this bloodshed? If the regime survives, it sends a clear signal to every bully. Kill enough people, and you stay in power. Who in Europe needs that message to become a reality? And yet Europe hasn't even tried to build its own response.
Meanwhile, Iran was quick to respond to Zelensky's address. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi lambasted the Ukrainian president. Araghchi even went on to call the Ukrainian leader a clueless clown. On his X post, he said, and I quote him, Zelensky has been rinsing American and European taxpayers to fill the pockets of his corrupt generals and to confront what he calls an unlawful aggression in violation of the UN Charter. At the same time, he openly and unashamedly calls for unlawful US aggression against Iran in violation of the same UN Charter, unquote. He also went on to say, the world has had enough of confused clowns, Mr. Zelensky. Unlike your foreign-backed and mercenary-infested military, we Iranians know how to defend ourselves and have no need to beg foreigners for help. Time and again, the Ukrainian president has accused Iran of supporting Russia's war in Ukraine. In fact, he claims that Iran supplies thousands of its homemade Shahid drones to aid Russia's war. On its part, Iran refutes these claims. All right, moving on. US President Donald Trump has launched his new Board of Peace, as we all know. He unveiled the board's charter during the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. Now, this board was originally formed to oversee the rebuilding of Gaza after the Israel-Hamas ceasefire. But now, Trump wants it to spread out to do other things as well.
It's going to be a great plan, and that's where the Board of Peace really started. And I think we can spread out to other things as we succeed with Gaza. We're going to be very successful in Gaza. It's going to be a great thing to watch. And we can do other things. We can do numerous other things. Once this board is completely formed, we can do pretty much whatever we want to do. And we'll do it in conjunction with the United Nations. You know, I've always said the United Nations has got tremendous potential, has not used it.
Donald Trump says that he wants his Board of Peace to work in conjunction with the United Nations, but he's accused the UN of not living up to its potential. And earlier this week, Trump even said that his board might replace the UN. However, the Board of Peace seems to be facing pushback from a major international power, and that is China. Donald Trump has invited Chinese President Xi Jinping to be part of the Board of Peace, and so far, Chinese officials have refused to say whether Xi will accept. But on Friday, a Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson put up this post on social media platform X. She announced that Xi Jinping had spoken with Brazilian President Lula da Silva over phone and that China had asked Brazil to jointly uphold the central position of the United Nations. Now, this announcement, remember, comes just 2 days after another Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson had said this.
We've answered relevant questions yesterday on Board of Peace. On the UN, China always practices true multilateralism. No matter how the international landscape may evolve, China will stay firmly committed to safeguarding the international system with the UN at its core.
So twice in a span of 3 days, China has insisted on the UN maintaining its central role in the international system. And now it looks as though China is getting its allies on board as well to help defend the current existing system. A new world order seems improbable without Beijing's participation, and it will be possible if other nations such as India, Russia, Brazil also refuse to participate. During his conversation with President Lula, Xi had asked the entire global South to come together and protect the United Nations. Without the participation by the global South, Trump's Board of Peace is unlikely to have enough members to be considered a truly global body. Will Brazil and the rest of the global South follow China's lead, or will Trump's Board of Peace attract enough members to actually overshadow the United Nations? That's a wait-and-watch game.
But we've taken out almost...
All right, let me welcome on the broadcast Mr. Greg Swenson, who is an international affairs expert and a China analyst. He's joining us live from London. Greg, good evening. Welcome to WION. What do you make of the Chinese response, Greg? Because, of course, there have been concerns as to what the Board of Peace stands for, what it will do, while Donald Trump has assured that it's going to work in conjunction with the United Nations. Clearly, there are doubts about that as well.
Yeah, I think I'm not surprised that those comments came from the Chinese Communications Ministry, and it's typical of Xi to try to rally other countries in the global South around him. I don't think this will work. I think there's real positive changes happening in the global South, notably in South America, with led by Javier Milei in Argentina. And I think you'll see more of those countries circle around and support the U.S. So I think we'll have a lot more allies in the global South, with exceptions, notably, for example, South Africa. But if you notice, the countries that are leaning into China are the countries that are the most left-leaning, but also somewhat adversarial to the U.S. and to the West. So it doesn't surprise me. I don't think this will work. I think, the changes in Venezuela have put a real dent into the effort of China and other countries to lead, create an alternative to the U.S. currency being the world's reserve currency. I don't think that will work. The more and more oil that is not necessarily owned by the U.S. or produced by the U.S., but at least managed by the U.S.
But Greg, even if we
dollars.
don't go into the currency part and the de-dollarization concerns that Donald Trump has repeatedly talked about, the Board of Peace doesn't have a lot of important countries that need to be part of a global body. For that body to be called global, closest American allies such as France and UK are not part of it. Spain has opted out today. There are other countries like China, India and Russia have so far, they have not said anything. So, I mean, where does the Board of Peace stand then?
Well, it doesn't really matter. I mean, ultimately, if we can't call it a global, quote unquote, global board, that's fine. I mean, the mission there is peace in Gaza. And so I think regardless of whether there's participation from our adversaries or our allies, it doesn't really matter. We'll have plenty of people on board. But I think, so the fact that France and the UK declined Spain, that's just performative given the somewhat uncomfortable situation in Davos this week and the criticisms coming from President Trump and others, the Secretary of the Treasury, the Secretary of Commerce, all very critical of what's happening in Europe. And so Europe just doesn't have the power that they once did. They've let their defense and security apparatus deteriorate, especially since the end of the Cold War. So, it's not that important. They don't have the global reach that they used to. That's clearly the United States is the global superpower right now.
Okay, all right, we'll leave it there. I'm sure a lot of European representatives would like to differ when you say that Europe doesn't have any power, because we know that, but about the trade deal and all kinds of arms and ammunition that is shared between NATO allies, including America and Europe. So we'll have to wait and watch how this moves forward, but I'll leave it there. Greg, thank you very much for joining us on Beyond.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
After sealing the deal on TikTok and thanking the Chinese President Xi Jinping for it, the US president seems to be warming up with his competitor. Donald Trump has confirmed that he will visit China in April. He's also added that President Xi is expected to travel to the United States toward the end of the year. Trump said that he shares a strong and positive relationship with Jinping, but also acknowledged the strained ties during the COVID-19 pandemic. Citing an evidence of improved ties, Donald Trump pointed out that China is buying more U.S. farm products, including soya bean, which was one of the sticking points during the U.S.-China tariff war last year. His tone on China also seemed personal, as he called Xi Jinping an amazing guy and spoke favorably about his wife. The U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, meanwhile, echoed Trump's sentiments. In an interview with Politico, Scott Bessent said that the U.S.'s equation with China has reached a very good equilibrium, where disagreements are less likely to turn into full-scale economic conflict, as they did last year. In fact, Bessent went on to say that President Donald Trump and Chinese leader Xi Jinping could meet up to 4 times this year and have a productive rapport. Bessent listed multiple windows for the two world leaders to meet this year. And this includes Trump's visit to Beijing in April, which is a potential summer trip by Xi, either to DC or Mar-a-Lago, is what is being said, and the G20 then in Miami. He also said that Trump has expressed an interest in going to the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation meeting in China's Shenzhen. The shift in tone contrasts sharply with recent tariff wars between US and China, when the Trump administration imposed steep levies on China and Beijing responded with retaliatory measures. Bessent was among the key figures involved in negotiating the deal that eventually eased those tensions, though he noted that occasional flare-ups have continued. All right, moving on. The war of words between the leaders of America and Canada has now escalated. President Trump says that Canada is now not welcome to his board of peace. This, remember, after Prime Minister Mark Carney hit back at Donald Trump's claim that Canada lives because of the United States of America. During his speech at the World Economic Forum, Trump had claimed, remember, that Mark Carney was not grateful during his Davos speech. Carney responded in a national address, crediting Canadians for a thriving Canada.
Canada lives because of the United States. Remember that, Mark, the next time you make your statements.
Canada doesn't live because of the United States. Canada thrives because we are Canadian.
Now, Trump appeared to shoot back later on Thursday in a social post, withdrawing an invitation from Canada to join the Board of Peace. Remember, Mark Carney had indicated that he may join the board, but he has ruled out paying any money for it. The board requires a contribution of $1 billion to become a permanent member. Carney's speech at Davos had made headlines. He had said that Canada was not under any illusions about the precarious state of global relations. He also warned that rules-based order, in fact global order, was fading.
It seems that every day we're reminded that we live in an era of great power rivalry, that the rules-based order is fading, that the strong can do what they can and the weak must suffer what they must.
In Carney's latest speech, aimed at a domestic audience, he said that Canada should serve as a model in an era of democratic decline.
First is to be a bastion, the second is to be a beacon. Now, Canada can't solve all the world's problems, but we can show that another way is possible, that the arc of history isn't destined to be warped towards authoritarianism and exclusion. it can still bend towards progress and justice.
Trump has repeatedly threatened to annex Canada, and this week he posted an image on social media of a map with Canada as well as Greenland and Venezuela covered by the American flag. As religion takes a more prominent role in Bangladesh's politics, the Trump administration seems to be warming up to change. A report by the Wall Street Journal claims that American diplomats in Dhaka are eyeing to step up engagements with Jamaat-e-Islami and other conservative Islamist political parties. The report cites a closed-door meeting between Bangladeshi journalists and an unnamed American diplomat in Dhaka. This meeting reportedly took place on the 1st of December last year. According to audio recordings of the meeting cited by the Wall Street Journal report, the American diplomat acknowledged that Bangladesh's politics had taken an Islamist turn. American assessments suggest that the Jamaat would perform better than ever before in the upcoming elections. In fact, during this meet, the American diplomat reportedly told the Bangladeshi journalist that the U.S. wants to be friends with the Jamaat. He also indicated that the U.S. was willing to engage with other conservative Islamist political parties in the country. The report goes on to say that the U.S. diplomat downplayed concerns over Jamaat's hardline Islamist politics. The American diplomat discounted any possibility of the Jamaat imposing Sharia in Bangladesh, and he went on to suggest that Washington would hit back at Dhaka with tariffs on its textiles industry to prevent any such move. This American outreach to Jamaat comes at a time when India's relations with both Dhaka and Washington have taken a hit. New Delhi has long feared the rise of Islamic conservative parties as a threat to the regional security strategy. The Jamaat-e-Islami has been banned multiple times in Bangladesh itself, including during Sheikh Hasina's rule. With Hasina's ouster, the Jamaat is back in the political fray, and the American outreach could further mainstream Jamaat-e-Islami and put a further strain on the India-US relations. Jamaat, remember, has traditionally advocated for governing Sharia law and is seen to be a major driver of anti-India sentiment. Bangladesh is set to hold general elections on the 12th of February this year, which is the first since the ouster of Sheikh Hasina. With Hasina's Awami League banned from contesting these upcoming elections, the BNP and Jamaat-e-Islami are now considered to be among the front-runners in this race. Meanwhile, remember, Bangladesh is heading towards its highly anticipated general elections next month. Official campaigning has already begun in the country. These will be the first polls since the 2024 uprising that ended former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's rule. As the election date nears, Sheikh Hasina has issued a statement claiming that Bangladesh will never see free and fair elections. And it is to be noted, remember, that this comes in the backdrop of Awami League ban, Sheikh Hasina's political party, from contesting the upcoming elections. Sheikh Hasina, who fled Bangladesh after the uprising, slammed the Muhammad Yunus government. She said that the people of Bangladesh are living under the shadow of the Yunus administration. The South Asian nation of 170 million people votes on the 12th of February for 350 lawmakers to be elected. Mass rallies are expected with hundreds of thousands of supporters gathering. The front-runners, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party or the BNP, are campaigning in full swing, setting the stage for an intense political battle. Well, shifting our focus now, in the UK, Prime Minister Keir Starmer and his Labour Party are being accused of undermining two different challenges to their authority. They are accused of unfairly postponing local body elections in 29 councils, and a challenge to Starmer himself from within the Labour Party also is something that he's grappling with. The UK is holding local body elections on the 7th of May. 136 local governments in the UK will go to polls. These include all the London borough councils, county councils, district councils, and others. Overall, more than 5,000 local government seats will be heading to the hustings, but the number should have been higher. Elections in 29 areas have been postponed. One more area, which is Essex, is still awaiting a final decision. The Labour Party has been accused of colluding with the Conservative Party and the Liberal Democrats to delay these polls. The Labour says that the delay is to merge some district and county councils into unitary councils. The party says that the local councils requested this themselves and that the merger ensures better delivery of government services. However, this delay has been condemned by the Reform UK party and its leader, Nigel Farage. Reform enjoyed success during local elections in 2025, winning 600 seats and gaining control of 10 councils. Farage now says that this last-minute delay this year is a gambit by both Labour and the Tories to keep Reform from gaining more ground. Reform is challenging the delays in a judicial review. Meanwhile, Keir Starmer and his loyalists in Labour have been accused of trying to undermine a potential challenger to the Prime Minister, which is the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham. He's reportedly considering a return to the Parliament. Burnham was an MP between 2001 and 17 before taking the Manchester Mayor's post. His return to the Parliament could pave the way for the popular Labour Party leader to challenge Starmer for the Prime Minister's post. Reports suggest that Starmer's allies have already launched a Stop Andy Burnham campaign to prevent him from fighting in the Gorton and Denton by-election. This by-election was declared because the sitting Labour MP resigned and is scheduled to be held before the local body polls in May. Keir Starmer's allies reportedly control the Labour Party's National Executive Committee, or the NEC, and this means that Burnham may not be allowed to contest the by-election even if he wants to. Starmer's allies have reportedly justified his potential exclusion by saying that it would result in a fresh by-election for the Greater Manchester Mayor post. They say it would cost the party £500,000 to fight that new race, and that the Reform might try and make inroads in Manchester. In China, Xi Jinping's anti-corruption purge continues. The latest senior official to face disciplinary action is Gao Yichen, who's China's former Vice Minister of State Security. 75-year-old Gao was expelled from China's Communist Party this week. China's anti-corruption watchdog, the Central Commission for Discipline Inspection, or the CCDI, made this announcement. The CCDI accused Gao of engaging in collusion between politics and business, exchanging benefits and severely polluting the political environment. Gao was the deputy head of China's Ministry of State Security, that is China's principal civilian intelligence agency. It's effectively China's version of the CIA. Gao also had an additional role. In 2005, he became deputy director of the 610 office. This was a security agency which dealt with religious cults. Gao retired from both posts years ago, but China says that he abused his influence after retirement. He was put into investigation last June, and China's anti-graft watchdog finally read out the charges this week. The CCDI says that Gao assisted others in getting job transfers and arranged approvals for company listings. And in return, he allegedly accepted gifts, money, vehicle services, and even banquets from private business owners. The CCDI says that Gao, quote, lost his ideals and convictions. He's been transferred to a special Chinese state office which specializes in investigation, and he will now be prosecuted by the state for all his alleged illegal gains that have also been confiscated. Meanwhile, Xi Jinping has been on an anti-corruption crusade for years. Remember, he's launched it as soon as he came to power back in 2012. But the campaign has picked up in intensity only since 2022. Several members of China's Central Military Commission have been purged in the anti-corruption drive. This includes China's former Defense Minister Wei Fenghe. Numerous generals and heads of state-owned companies have been picked up as well. Several senior officials like former Foreign Minister Qin Gang disappeared from public view for weeks. Reports say that the purges in the name of anti-corruption have helped Xi Jinping consolidate his hold on power. And now most of the people in the top posts are his loyalists. Well, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Race to Power. But as always, we'll keep getting you political stories and updates from across the world. For tonight, thank you very much for joining us. Bye-bye.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other